Hey everybody, I'm Steven Human and welcome to Superhuman Customs, where we customize figures that I want to customize, generally McFarlane DC figures, because that's what I'm super into lately, and they're very easy to customize, lots of cool stuff. So today what we got is a Hellbat. This is an older figure. It was one of the first, I think came out in the second line that they came out with in 2020, so he's been out for a while. I was able to get him at a swap meet recently for 10 bucks. And what we're gonna do with him today is we are gonna make him a battle damaged version of this character. So we're actually gonna cut him up, we're gonna ding him up, we're gonna make him look like he got into a fight with Darkseid and just make him look a little bit cooler. We're also gonna add some red glow-in-the-dark paint. Yes, I have a different color of glow-in-the-dark paint now because that gives the glow even in regular light. It looks really cool, so that's what we're gonna do. Let's make this bad boy look like he just got out of a brawl. All right, so if you're gonna start banging somebody up, you've gotta be committed, okay? This isn't something where you're like, oh, I don't wanna hurt it. You have to hurt it. So you have to take some, razor blades and you have to gouge in stuff and you have to go to town in order to make this happen. And you need to be careful because when you're using a knife, obviously, you have the potential to cut yourself. So if you're gonna be cutting, like if you're cutting like this, you want to cut away from yourself. I'm just digging in, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to dig in and get some cuts. And then we'll paint these in. We'll put in a little bit of silver, and then we'll do a wash over the top because I don't want it to look too, I don't want these gouges to look too like clean and pristine. I want it to look like, oh, here we go. This is a good fight between him and Darkseid. And we're just going to really dig in, and we're gonna do this all over. So I want him to look cut and scraped, and he's gonna look really, really cool when we are done. But don't be afraid to really dig in here and get some good marks. See, that's looking pretty sweet. Now, when you are adding these gouges and stuff, yeah, you want to be kind of all over, but you don't want it to be too much. So like with the symbol here, I'm just gonna do two. I'm gonna do this big one that I did right there, and I'm gonna do a smaller one over here, and then that will probably be it for the symbol. And that's kind of what I'll do. I'm gonna hit strategic points on his body to just make it look like he's been in a good battle. But I don't want him to look too bad. I want this to look like he won, that he came out on top, but it just wasn't an easy time for him. So I don't want it to look so bad that, he's broken, that Bruce Wayne died. I want it to just look like that was a good fight and he won. So that's how we're gonna do it. Just be strategic. For some reason, I really like this sort of stuff. I like dinging the guys up. The thing is because there's a fun randomness to it. When you're trying to get things perfect, just by hand, it's really hard to do. And with this, as long as you're just kind of, trying to balance things out asymmetrically so it looks random, there's just a funness to doing this. And it's kind of cathartic. It's kind of fun. So if you've never done something like this and battle damaged somebody before, you're in for a real treat because you'll probably get a kick out of it. Because there's no perfection necessary. There's no self-judgment. There's just, hey, I'm gonna make this guy look like he just got the tar beat out of him. And it gives you the excuse to do just that. And it's fun. It doesn't take much like that. See, you just hit the right angle, boom, comes out and it's already got a gray underneath. I mean, this guy's already looking pretty cool when it comes to some of these things up, so have fun with him. That's why we're doing this, right? Have some fun, make some things look original, make them look cool, enjoy yourselves. Now, just like I would if I were going through and hitting the edges with a dry brush, I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the blade. I'm gonna hit some of these higher edges and just scrape along them, because those would be the parts that would be more likely to get hit in a battle. And so we've already gone through and dinged them up, and so now we're just gonna hit some of these areas here where they would have scraped during a battle. And so pretend you're painting just with a blade, and it'll give you some very natural little areas to hit, and it will just ding them up that much more before we go through with our paint. All right, so we're pretty good here when it comes to beating him up, but one other thing. So Sam said, my son, obviously, he said, it's too bad we can't dent him. Well, you actually can. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit a couple spots with the drill and just add a couple of dents. And you kind of have to hold it in place, and then you can get something like that. Just hit a couple spots and you can actually add a dent to the armor, just like that, see? So he's been pounded a little bit. He's been beaten down by Darkseid or Doomsday or whoever he decided to fight in his apocalyptic armor. And you can add a dent, just like that. And you can't forget his wings. What I'm gonna do is with the drill, I'm gonna add a couple of these dents, and then I'm gonna kind of go like this because it's gonna add some squiggles. Maybe they're a little bit too squiggly, but I think this way it will ding him up pretty good. Use your blade where you can. Sometimes it can be a pain. Great way to use the drill to catch the edges is just to run it along like this, and it will jack it up. Another good way to do some realistic scratches is to hold it in a spot and just kind of move it back and forth. And it gets you some nice stuff. Especially like if you want like electric looking stuff, this thing works really well. He's looking good and dinged up. So what we're gonna do now, you can see how the natural cuts do a good job of already accenting. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of silver paint, and we're just gonna go over some of these just to add highlights in here, just to scrape it up a little bit. And it will add some contrast between the gray. So you can do it however much or little you want. I'm gonna go through and just add some accents here, almost more of a dry brush than anything, to just make him look a little bit more standouty. And if you hit these edges like that, then it's gonna do a good job of just adding depth to what you've done to him. And it'll make it look like, you know, there's some metallic underneath, there's some different layers of stuff. And you can do as much or as little as you want. You can hit the edges of the pauldrons, which is what I'm gonna do, and just really make him look like he's been through it. What I'm finding is that this guy does not need much paint to make him look damaged. I did a really good job of beating the crap out of him. So less is more, and I'm not gonna do a ton more paint to this guy just because I think it's then gonna look too much. It might look too much already. So you wanna judge that. Use mine as kind of a base and see if that's what you're into, if you want to look that beat up, or if you want to look less beat up. Mine at this point looks pretty beat up, so you'll have to judge for yourself as to how far you want to go and make him more or less damaged. If at any point you feel like you've gone a little bit too far on some of this, what you can do is you can take your wash and you can deaden some of it. So I'm going to go through a little bit here with just my standard Vallejo liquidy wash, and I'm going to hit some of these areas. It'll still have the damage, it'll still look like it's damaged, but it will tone it down just a little bit because it's black, and it will make it so that it's not quite so in your face. I feel like I went a little bit too far in some places, and this will allow me to rectify a little bit of that. And it will also, you know, make it so that you can make it look a little dirty on some of these places. And it's just a good, the more layers you can do, the better off you're going to be, honestly. So go ahead and go through and do some of this stuff. And like I can do it here on the symbol. Obviously I'm going to go through and lighten some of this up with the glow in the dark paint, but this will allow me to dirty up some of these areas and deaden a few of the scratches. We're gonna move into the red, but I've got a debate. So I've got this neon glow red paint, and then I've got some metallic. So we're gonna put it in the bowl here, and we're just gonna kind of see which one I prefer, and that's what we're gonna go with. Okay, they're both kind of unique. Neither one's a really bright red. One of them is almost a pink, but I'm gonna just test it back here and see what we get on the belt. So here is the neon, and that's interesting, I guess. Not quite sure. So the metallic matches pretty well. Honestly, I'm not sure. I want something that's really bright, so maybe the fluorescent is the way to go. Honestly, I think the metallic is the safe choice, and so we're gonna go with the fluorescent, just because I wanna do something different here. It's gonna require 2 coats because it's a very thin paint. The metallic, it was the same way, but the metallic, I always like that it goes on so thin. With this, I want it bright. So I'm just gonna kind of dab for right now with it, and it's definitely going to make him look bright on these reds, and that's what I want. It's gonna have a neonness to it. It's gonna really make him stand out, especially with all the damage. Having this bright red on the symbol and all the piping is gonna do something really cool, I think. So it's a risk, but it is a risk worth taking, as pretty much all risk is. With the piping, I'm just getting a really small brush, and go nice and slow. And because this is already indented, it's a pretty easy job of getting it to stay in there and not going too much over. And if it does, well, then this is one of those circumstances where you can wipe really easily if it gets out from where you want it. I'm really glad I went with this fluorescent. It's so much brighter and just kind of crazy. It actually looks like it's glowing. That's what I want, because I mean, having him battle damaged and angry, and that energy is coursing through here, that is a cool look. And that's the look I'm going for. So I am very excited that I decided to take the risks. I think metallic would have been shiny, but it wouldn't have created what I'm getting right now, which is just a brightness that's really kind of crazy and cool. Using my magnifying glass and the thinnest brush I've got, I'm gonna do the eye here, the sort of slit. I'm really liking the look of this. Now with this, if you do get it a little bit on the black, don't worry about it. You can just go back over with a little bit of black and you can touch it up. So don't stress out when it comes to the piping if you're gonna screw everything up. Remember, this is about risk. It's about taking risks. If you weren't taking risks, you wouldn't be customizing, because you spent money on a figure and it always has the potential to not turn out the way you want. So do not be afraid of taking risks. That's why, I could have gone with the metallic and I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because this neon is really bright and it looks like it's glowing, and that's what I want. I'm gonna have to do this more often with other figures. Get some neon paints so that it looks like they have a glow. Don't be afraid to take risks. This isn't comic accurate by any means, but I am going to paint a little bit of this paint here on the wings. Just on this one slash right here. And this is thin paint, so I'm gonna dab it and get a little layer, and it will look like it's glowing as well. I don't know if I'm gonna display this guy with his wings because they're big. You guys have seen my displays. All of the shelves at this point are fairly full. But if I do, I'm gonna want them to have a little bit of life to them. And I think this is a good way to do it. So just dab on some of this paint and let it come to life. And there we go. We've got the Hellbat. I did a clear coat on him at the end just to brighten him up a little bit, to make it so he's a little bit more shiny, but he looks like he's been through it. And that's what I wanted. I wanted him to stand out on the shelf, and the neon just really pops. I'm really happy with how he turned out. And we took some risks. Don't be afraid of risks. Even if you pay full price for a figure, don't be afraid to screw up. But that's one of the reasons why I try to get as discounted as possible, because then it's much less of a risk. But still, don't be afraid to take risks and do something that may not work out, because at the end of the day, you can fix it. It's just paint, and I mean, obviously if I didn't like the wings with the holes I put in, that would have caused me some problems. But hey, take some risks, have fun, do some cool stuff, and I guarantee that you're gonna be happy with the end result. I'm Stephen Human. Remember, if you are a reader, if you love books, science fiction thriller books, I'm your guy. Check out stephenhuman.com. They're also all available on Amazon and on Audible if you prefer audiobooks. And I will see you guys on Superhuman Customs next week.